No, I was just thinking before I talked to Mr. Grocott about this, because he's heading School Sports New Zealand as its chairperson, and he is the principal of Shirley Boys High School. I have to say I started school, and I often tell the story. I have to say, behind a young a man, and um, his name was Kim Sloan. God, I remember that. He was a very good rugby player and a very good cricket player. In fact, from memory, he was the captain of both my school rugby team and of First 15 and of my school First 11. Very good. But I can remember starting, so Kim was in the fifth form when I was in the fourth form. And when I finished school in the seventh form, he was in the sixth form. So he wasn't dumb. He just had a problem with exams, I think, and took 2 years to get school cert, and then he took 2 years to get UE. Well, he didn't get UE in the end, I don't think, poor guy. But nevertheless, he struggled academically, but his sporting prowess was outstanding, no question. Um, Now, it was not uncommon, I have to say, in my schooling time, for kids to repeat year five, year their fifth form, year 11 it would be, or year 12, the sixth form, if they failed their examinations. So there were a number of kids at my school, in particular, who had spent or who were in their sixth year as a consequence of their mum and dad quite rightly saying you're not going to leave schools, mate, without any qualifications. In fact, I think now of my seventh form, and I'm just thinking of my seventh form history class, which wasn't very big because everybody else did physics, but anyhow, and I would suggest to you that half of my seventh form history class, for example, were year 14s, or if you like, they had repeated either school cert or UE to be there. Mm. So it does seem, on the face of it, that nobody at those times worried about them playing first 11 rugby, or rowing, or playing soccer, or playing rugby. That was just the nature of the beast. But things must have changed. Well, we'll find out how much they've changed and why. The chairperson of School Sports New Zealand and the principal of Shirley Boys High School, Tim Grocott, joins us now. Tim, welcome. Thank you very much. You would have heard my introduction, mate. Welcome to the show. You would have heard
Good
my
morning, Michael. Thank you.
introduction. What about those kids that I went to school with, many of whom were repeating a year because, frankly, they hadn't got that year properly? Why can't they play sport because they've spent a sixth year at secondary school?
So they would be legitimate cases, Michael, where they could apply for a dispensation. So there is an exemption process. So what we're really saying is that the year 14 students who we're wanting to see not involved in secondary school sport are the ones who have already completed their education. If there are students around who have for a genuine reason haven't completed their education, there might have been some health issues or whatever that was, then they're perfectly entitled because they've got a genuine reason to be back at school. But there is an exemption process we've got to work through to actually ensure that that is an appropriate reason.
So you're saying, for example, let's just try the Malbra Boys College First 15 case. You're saying that the kids that were the year 14 playing this year in that First 15, they had finished year 13, they'd got their qualifications, they were ready to go, but they came back to play rugby. Is that right? I mean, it wasn't
I,
to improve their academic qualifications.
yeah, look, that I don't know, Michael. I don't know the ins and outs of that. So I can't comment on that particular issue with Marlborough boys. I don't know whether those boys have gained the qualifications they need. But what we're saying going forward with our regulations is that basically we don't want to see any year 14s involved. But if they are involved, it's because there is a genuine educational reason. What we're trying to do is emphasise the educational aspect of secondary school sport.
I understand that. I'm sort of bemused by the idea, though, that a kid would come back to school just to play rugby. It doesn't advance their career much doing that, and they've got many pathways to go on if they're mad keen on rugby and they wanted a professional career. School would almost seem to hold them back, wouldn't it? So, am I missing something in the psychology of these kids?
No, I think, and again, we're not dealing with hundreds of students, Michael. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers. The staff at School Sport New Zealand would have a better idea of that. But what we're basically saying is, yeah, there is a pathway outside of school for people to pursue that sport, and therefore, once you've finished your time at school, once you've finished year 13, it's time to enter into that model of development. It's no longer the school's job. And what we're really also wanting to emphasise is that schools aren't part of that professional or semi-professional development of sport. You know, we're actually about providing education. We're about students coming to school to learn and gain a qualification. Sport happens in that environment, but it isn't the number one thing, and we don't want to see people using that as a professional pathway.
Yeah, good luck on that one, seriously, because like it or not, particularly with rugby and rugby league, it is part of the pathway, isn't it? And it's, for example, New Zealand Rugby sees schoolboy rugby as critical in the
And
development
it
of their
is. I
professional
totally agree
players.
with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. It's definitely a pathway, and there's no reason why students shouldn't be looking to excel and do well in their chosen sport. But it shouldn't be the only way, and people shouldn't be encouraged to return for a year 14 just to have another year of development. There are other ways that they can develop their sport.
Listen, I understand the sentiment of what you're saying, and I have no disagree with it. It's just that there are plenty of schools in this country who have academies, and they are set up to foster sporting excellence in those schools. Large number of other schools, in fact, I've just got a good example just recently of my son's school, lost their star rugby player to Auckland Grammar on a sporting scholarship. Schools play that game all the time. Is this designed to stop that as well?
The rules, we also, part of our regulations that we've sent out for review, Michael, there's also in there is some work around poaching, and we're looking to try and put a framework around that and ensure that basically what we're wanting to see is that the students aren't being tapped on the shoulder by another school. There isn't inducements being offered. And basically what we're wanting to do is to say, um, if you're wanting to develop a student, you develop them from the beginning of their schooling at year 9. You don't come along once they're at year 11 or year 12 and say, hey, come along to our school and be part of our team. We're wanting to actually just make sure that people are really open and understanding of that, and that they're not then going off and offering inducements to other people.
Okay, but it's happening. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's happening in Auckland, it's happening in Wellington, it's happening in Christchurch probably as well, with sporting scholarships being offered. They're not offered at year 9 or 10 level, they're offered at year 11 and 12. Are your eligibility rules going to deal with that as well?
Yeah, that's what we're looking to deal with. So one of the eligibility rules that's up for review is around poaching. And so that's exactly what I was describing, is we're wanting to put a framework around that so that people are not indulging in that behaviour.
Can I ask, the School Sport New Zealand looks after what? All school sport in New Zealand? Or do you have to belong to School Sport New Zealand as a constituent member, a school does? Because what I'm trying to get from you is, once you put together these eligibility criteria, are they uniform throughout all schools and all sporting contests in the country?
So all sports that, or all tournaments that we sanction, Michael. So we sanction all of those national tournaments, and also some of the regional ones. They would be things that would fit under our framework. So if you look at Māori Cup, for instance, which is the big rowing competition in March. It's in our summer tournament week, huge event. It's a national event. Our rules would apply to that, but they would also then apply to those qualifying events. So the North Island rowing regatta, which leads into Māori, the South Island rowing regatta that leads into Māori, those rules would all apply in there. So we're just trying to create that consistency. They wouldn't necessarily apply to regional competitions. So Auckland 1A rugby, that's run
Just what I was
by
thinking
College
of.
Sport
Yeah.
Auckland,
Mm.
yeah, it wouldn't necessarily apply to those, but schools would need to ensure that, I guess, they're not wanting to play ineligible athletes at a national level in those regional competitions, because they do flow through into a national tournament. Rugby is an example. So if you had some rules in the Hurricanes competition that are different from our national tournament, once they go to top four, or qualifying for that top four, they still need to abide by School Sport New Zealand rules. So there is I guess.
Yeah, sorry, Kira.
Yeah, they just need to backtrack from that to ensure that actually, if the new to school rules at top four competition for rugby, let's use that as an example, that you're entitled to have 4 new to school students in that, then you'd want to be replicating that throughout your competition during the year.